Okay, so I'm gonna make what's called like my chicken pie or chicken casserole. I eat this a lot during my 6 month supervised diet, probably about once a month. And then I also ate it a lot during other diets that I've done because it's low in carb. Well, at least the way that I do it, it's low in carb. But since I had surgery, I have not made this recipe. So I once read that if you change 3 different ingredients in a recipe, then it's your recipe. So this is a recipe that I originally got from, I think it was called Cook's Country magazine, and it had like a tortillas in it, and it had like a cup of flour, and I've made it so many times that I keep altering the ingredients. Now I haven't had this since surgery, so I'm going to be altering things once again. So to me, one of the most important ingredients is the cilantro. Now the funny thing about cilantro is that I'm not a big fan of cilantro. There have been several times that I've had salsas that I could not eat because of the cilantro in them. I don't understand why the difference or whatever, but in this recipe, I feel like cilantro is essential and I love it in this recipe. So I have cheese, I have my rotisserie chicken that you saw me freeze. Now you're supposed to use milk, but I don't have any milk. Only thing I have is cream, so I'm just going to dilute some of this with water and use it. Almond flour. So of course the original recipe actually calls for a full cup of flour. Now, over the years, I've used less and less flour, and I have found it doesn't make any difference in the recipe. I've never used almond flour, though. I usually just use regular flour and add less. I'm going to be using almond flour today. Now, I just dug up this baking powder, and I saw that it expired 1 year ago. So bad. But I don't have anything else, and I really want to cook this tonight. So we'll see what happens as I use this baking powder that's 1 year old. And then another very important ingredient is jalapeno peppers. Now, I'm not a big spicy person. I'm not a big pepper person. I actually don't eat jalapeno peppers under any other circumstances, but in this recipe, it's delicious and I think it is essential. So this recipe is actually pretty simple. Let me start assembling things. Okay, so when you're making casseroles, the amount that you use doesn't really matter. It's like however much rotisserie chicken that you had. So this original recipe called for up to 3 cups of rotisserie chicken. Well, I had 13.75 ounces, so that wasn't even a pound of chicken, which is fine since I can't eat very much. Now, so I poured the chicken into my casserole dish. Now for the cilantro. Well, the recipe said a half a cup of finely chopped cilantro. I don't take the time to chop cilantro. What I do is I just, break the cilantro off of here and I put as much as looks good. So you know what? I think that looks good, whatever that is. If you love cilantro, add more. If you don't, add a little less. But that's where I'm stopping right now. So next I'm going to put in my jalapenos. So once again, it's telling me to use 1/3 of a cup of these chopped. So I don't know, I'm going to take about 1/3 of a cup, but 1/3 of a cup for 3 cups of chicken. I guess, whatever, I'll take a small amount and chop it up and put it in here and see what it looks like. Okay, so I just added in some of the chopped jalapeno peppers. I don't know, I added whatever seems like a decent amount. That's probably a lot for the amount of chicken that I have, so I'm a little worried, but whatever. Okay, so then the next step is that I'm just going to add in some cheddar cheese. So the original recipe called for 2 cups of cheddar cheese. Well, wait a minute. Some of that was going to go on top. So the original recipe called for a cup of cheddar cheese to go in the body of the recipe. I'm only going to put a half a cup in here because I'm using so much less chicken. So then I add in some salt and some pepper. So I'm gonna do that. Okay, so I just mixed up all these ingredients with my hand, and then now is the wet ingredients. So this is 2 eggs. So the original recipe called for 2 eggs, and even though this is like a third of a recipe, I went ahead and put the same amount in there. I put in 1/4 of a cup of almond flour. I put in 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. So the original recipe called for 1 teaspoon, and I added 1/2 tablespoon because I don't know how well this is going to work. But you know, with a casserole, it doesn't matter anyway. So what you do now is you pour all of this in here. I said it's been so long since I've made this. So I'm not even sure if this looks the way it's supposed to look. And did I say I also had put a 3/4 cup of cheese in here. So now I'm going to put 1/4 cup of cheese on top, and then this goes in the oven. So this really was nice and simple. Okay, so the next thing, let me turn this around. The next thing I'm going to make is dirty cauliflower rice. I got the idea to make this when I was doing my rotisserie chicken. Lots of rotisserie chickens these days don't come with giblets, but this one did. So when I saw that it had the giblets there, I was going to make this dirty rice. But that was several days ago, and I didn't take care of them right away, and so they went bad. But it just so happens that I had this liver in my freezer because I've been thinking about trying liver again. I haven't had it since I was a kid, and I didn't like it. So now I'm going to use it in my rice. You know, what better way to have something that you think you're not going to like than to cover it up with a bunch of other things that you do like. So I'm going to be using liver, some green onions, celery. So their recipe calls for cauliflower rice. I'm going to be using my broccoli rice. This is some frozen onion that I had in my freezer. This is a pork sausage. So they call for 1/2 pound of pork sausage, but I had this one sausage that was still in my freezer from a recipe from something I did maybe 6 months ago, and I really needed to use this up. So I just thawed this out. I have some ground beef here and a green pepper. So once again, you know, just like for casseroles, you don't really need to follow the amounts exact. I'm going to chop all these things up and see how everything comes out. So, let's see how I should start this. I guess the first thing I'm going to do, you see this needs to be for 30 minutes. So they call for giblets, which I don't have. I'm going to be using liver. So I'm going to take the liver and the green onions, and I'm going to put those over medium heat for 30 minutes. So that's what I'm going to do first. And they call for 1/2 pound, and that's what I have here. So I guess, yeah, I'll be using this whole thing. I'm kind of scared. Okay, so this is the liver and 1/2 of the chopped onions. So they're going to simmer in this skillet for 30 minutes under medium heat. And my casserole only has 4 more minutes to go in the oven, and it does smell really good. Okay, so I just finished chopping up. So this is the other 1/2 of the green onion that I chopped up. This is the celery. So the recipe called for 2 celery stalks, but I thought they were kind of scrawny, and I love celery. So I went ahead and did 3. And then bell pepper. The recipe called for a cup. I don't know if this is a cup. I just chopped up the entire bell pepper. And once again, I love bell pepper. So it's like, I need as much of the stuff that I love to help cover up the taste of that liver. And you know, when I bought this house, there were houses that I loved, but they didn't have an open kitchen. And for me, I knew that what makes it I used to hate chopping vegetables. But knowing that, you know, I'm not going to show you because my house is a mess, but this table that I have here, that you can see here, it faces a TV. And so as I'm chopping vegetables, I'm watching TV. I refuse to buy a house where I'm not able to like look upon the rest of my house and be a part of everything that's going on. That makes it a lot easier. So now I love chopping vegetables. It's kind of like a little meditation, and things taste so much better to me. I don't know. As I'm chopping vegetables, I'm thinking about how delicious this is going to taste, how healthy it is for me that I'm doing this. And as I'm eating these items, I don't know, it just enhances the taste knowing that I did all this work, which is really not that hard. So let me move on to the next step. Okay, so here are all of my vegetables cooking away. So I've added my frozen white onions, and then the celery and the peppers, and then I've also added some garlic. So this called for 4 cloves of garlic. So on days when I'm doing a lot of chopping, then those are the days that I cheat and I use this garlic. You can find this anywhere. They have it at Walmart, they have it at Target. So that's what I put in here. My liver is still cooking away. And let me show you, here's my casserole that I took out of the out of the oven. So yeah, that looks really good. So I am going to divide this up into servings. And this does freeze very well. Okay. So one thing I forgot to mention when I looked at the recipe, because I was trying to figure out what I needed to do with the ground beef, I forgot that I looked at several different recipes for dirty rice, and a lot of recipes do call for a little bit of ground beef in there. This recipe actually doesn't call for ground beef, but since I'm not going to be using as much sausage as the recipe calls for, I am going to be putting in a little bit of the ground beef, but it's not in the normal recipe for this. Okay, checking in. So now I've added the riced broccoli to this. So the original recipe called for cauliflower, 3 cups. I ended up with 4 cups of riced broccoli, so that's what I've put in here. So this is in here with, there's a bay leaf that's in here. And then this is a Cajun recipe. So then there is some cumin in here and some cayenne pepper. And then off to the side here, so this is a 1/2 pound of that ground beef. Oh yeah, I need to turn this off. And then I squeezed that one sausage out of its casing. Yeah, this is done. Turn that off. So soon I'm going to be putting this into my mixture here. And I just looked at the recipe closely, and it did say you're supposed to use chicken stock. I don't have any chicken stock in my house, so I'm just going to have to use water and add a bunch of salt to it. It shouldn't make much of a difference. I mean, I know chicken stock adds more flavor, but I think if you add some salt in there yourself, then that imparts flavor. So there's my liver still cooking away. It probably has maybe 10 more minutes to go before I have to let it cool and chop it up and then put all these things together. Okay, so I just weighed out my casserole. It is a little dry looking, so I probably would add more cheese next time, but it's hard to tell, you know, once I actually have a whole bunch of guacamole on top of it, that's going to help a lot. So there's 2 servings in here. I'm going to give this to my friend, and then these are 4 servings for me. I am going out to eat for dinner tomorrow. I might only be eating this for the next 2 days and then put 2 servings in the freezer for later. Like I said, this heats up well, and I think I'm going to sprinkle some cheese on top so that when this heats up, it's going to be all melted and bubbly. And so these are just 3.5 ounces in each one of these, and then that's certainly enough room with a whole bunch of guacamole for me to be able to eat this. I can't wait. It's been so long since I've had this. Okay, so I just finished chopping up the liver into very small pieces, and now you add everything all together along with some chicken stock, but I'm just going to add water, some salt water, and you're going to simmer everything together for 30 minutes. So let me show you what this looks like. Okay, so now everything is all mixed together, and now this has to simmer for about 30 minutes so all of the flavors can meld together. And you see how the reason it's called dirty rice, because remember how green it was before? You can't see any of that green, and if this was rice in here, you wouldn't be able to see any of the white rice either. So this smells so good that I can't wait to try it, but I won't be able to try it tonight because it's 8:39 at night, and so I've already stopped eating for today, so I can't try this. But wow, yeah, it really smells so good. It's the cumin and the garlic that I can smell, and all of the onions. I can't wait to try this. Okay, so everything is all divided out. What I forgot was that the recipe also called for some fresh thyme, and it just turned out that I still had some in my refrigerator from when I made the snapper. So I did add that in there while this was simmering for 30 minutes. So I actually divided this up into 6 servings. There's 1 1/2 servings in here and 1 1/2 servings in here. This I'm going to give to my friend. I don't know if she likes liver, but I'm not even going to tell her that there's liver in there. And then these are for me. Now, because I'm going to be fasting, and like I said, I'm going out to dinner tomorrow, I think I'm actually going to put 2 of these in the freezer. I'm only going to be eating 1 of these right now. I just have so much food going on right now because I'm trying to get this vegetable challenge done. But I promise to come back and tell you how this was. So today's the next day, and I'm eating lunch. I had thought I was going to have the chicken pie for lunch, but I kept thinking about this dish, so I just tried some of this dirty rice, and it's really good. The liver is tougher than it should be, so I don't know. I might have to, if I make this again, I might choose, there are recipes that cooked the liver in a different way. So I think it might be better to cook the liver in a different way, but the liver is in such small pieces. It's just very chewy, but the flavor of it melds well with the flavor of everything else in this dish. I mean, there's cumin in here and the pepper, and I can taste the celery. And so it's like with all these spices, it's really good. It's very good. Okay, so this is my chicken pie all heated up with a whole bunch of guacamole on top, which will help with some of the dryness. Next time I make it, I will add more cheese to it.